Hi, I'm Lyn Christian from SoulSalt, and those of you who are coming on, some of us have spoken before, and some of you are new to SoulSalt as a company. I welcome you all to go out to our website at soulsalt.com and see what we're about. One of the main things that we do at SoulSalt is we support people who are in that exciting and yet fear-filled moment of trepidation when you decide, I cannot continue to live my life the way I've been living it. So if you are looking for a new life where you can earn a living and live your life by doing things that inspire you, that feed you, that honor you, that is why we have these free webinars, because that is a big chunk of our work. On the call today, you're going to notice Shannon D, who runs the back end of our business and sometimes gets to be client focused when you come in through our intake process. We also have Coach Hillary and Coach Shannon Judge. They are people who have not only gone through coach certification, but they have also, here at SoulSalt, they've also gone through this very career reinvention process that you're interested in doing. I myself have reinvented at least 7 times over a long period of time. And so we know what it takes to support you through that exciting, but once again, sometimes fear-filled, self-doubt moment of what the heck am I doing? And I do have to do something different. So it's without very much more ado, I want to introduce Shannon, who's going to come on and talk in just a minute. Shannon Judge, one of our coaches who lives in Florida. And we're going to be discussing a little bit of what it takes for you to reinvent. And so while we're letting a few more people come on and Shannon's getting warmed up for that, I'll just simply mention that a lot of the work that we do is backed by research, some of it out of Harvard. Some of the research that we lean into is neuroscience. And today there's going to be kind of a blend of where neuroscience meets career reinvention. And so Shannon's going to take you through her presentation on the importance of your dreams, the importance of your aspirations, and there when it's applicable, Shannon, toss it over to me and I can help explain some of the neuroscience behind it. So we want to honor your time. We like to start on time. Those of you who are listening in, who have not had the opportunity to do this live, please know that you can send us questions at info@soulsalt.com. and ask us questions, and we'll be happy to respond to those. Shannon and Dee and I responded to someone in the south of Australia last night. And so just know we're open for your questions if we don't get to have you be live today. Those of you who are live, please feel free to ask questions. And if you have a question that comes up later, send it to info@soulsalt.com. So Shannon Judge, I'm so excited for you to come on and talk to us about your presentation today.
Thank you, Lyn. Thank you for having me. Of course, it's so great to see you, Hillary, Shannon, and thank you everyone for being here. Career reinvention is, it's an organized process that takes us through an ambiguous time in life. And Lyn, I invite you throughout the talk, please do step in because you're a neuroscience expert, and that really is a key part of this whole especially this part of career reinvention. If anyone has questions or comments along the way, please drop them in the chat or come off mute. I'd love to chat with you. So in the career reinvention process, a big part of the process is dreaming. And dreaming is one of those things that a lot of us hesitate to do. It's almost as if we need to give ourselves permission or even have someone else give us permission. And on the surface, I think when we look at that in career reinvention, it seems like it might be a really easy thing to do. Of course I can dream. I can dream of all the things I want to do in life. It's a fun escape. It's a nice way to plan, to outline our goals. But when it comes down to it, it's a little nerve-wracking. Sometimes it's a little scary to dream as big as we can, where a lot of us are usually kind of rooted in our comfort zones. And even if we dream sort of in our, our safe container. So the process of career reinvention, the program itself that Lyn has developed, and also the coaching that can go along with it, really is a safe space to allow yourself to dream and to really let yourself go. So today I have a little presentation for you all and a little exercise that we can go through together and just start talking about what that means. So I'm just going to share my screen one moment. So this is a reinvention basics, the importance of allowing yourself to dream. So this is a quote I thought was applicable for today. If I can dream, I can act. If I can act, I can become. How do we allow ourselves to dream? The first, for sure, is that we really do have to actively give ourselves permission. Consciously acknowledging that makes a big difference. And a lot of times if we do it in the context of something that we love, I'm working with a client who said, maybe I'll go take a wild dance class that gets me completely out of my comfort zone and I'll start dreaming, because it's not an easy thing to do, especially at home in our routine, sitting at our desks. So give yourself that permission. Tip number 2, let's find or create a safe space or a safe container. That can be in the context of career reinvention, of going through the course and being part of this community with SoulSalt. It can also be with trusted friends, colleagues, family, people that you talk about your dreams and aspirations with. People that accept you for who you are and don't limit you. I think one thing that we also see in reinvention at times is that the people closest to us sometimes are a little unnerved as well. By us dreaming bigger than we normally would. So that's something to be aware of. So find that space that you feel really safe to just let yourself go and be free. Tip number 3, this is an interesting spot. So make peace with the neutral zone. The neutral zone, which Lyn is so great at describing, is a model of basically we're in career reinvention. We've already left partially where we've been. We know it doesn't work for us, or we want to tweak certain aspects of it and we want to move on. So the neutral zone is the ambiguous in between before we arrive at where we're heading for. And it can be full of fear. It can be a bit nerve-wracking. We can feel untethered, and it can unsettle us for sure. So the more we're in that space and the more that we recognize that the process is normal, the more palatable it becomes, the more easy it is to navigate. Another really important, critical part of reinvention, I think that we all see, is that the focus really needs to be on the process. As human beings, it's so natural and normal to want to speed ahead to the outcome. It's easy to get lost in questioning, what are the merits of what I'm currently doing? How is this directly applicable to where I'm going? But it actually is the process. It is the unknown and that in-between neutral zone and dreaming that actually get us to where we want to go. So the more we let go and sink into that and find peace, the greater success we have. Lyn has definitely seen cases of clients who will, she's seen cases of clients who skip ahead really quickly in the process. They might find that bridge job. They might find that next step that they think is the end game and sort of disregard the necessary components of reinvention. And a lot of times it leads to a situation where the person needs to start the process all over again. So regardless of where you think you're at, focus on the process. Don't get too hung up on the outcome. You don't need to know the answers right away. Our tip number 5 is dream big. There really are no limits, and that kind of makes it even harder. If there's no limits and there are 0 obstacles, what's the biggest thing you could dream in your life? What makes you come alive? What makes you feel the blood flowing through your veins? What makes you wake up every day and want to jump out of bed? And it doesn't necessarily have to apply directly to what you think your career is. You can dream huge and say, I want to become a vocalist in a local band, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be what your actual career will be. So dream big, lots of possibilities. Tip number 6, write it down. Go back, reflect. This is a really big process in reinvention. We want to record in a journal what our aspirations are, what our dreams are about the whole process. And then we want to go back on that and reflect where we've been. Lyn, do you want to speak to that a bit?
Yes, I would.
I know you have such great things to say about the process of action and reflection and what reflection actually does for us.
So we do have to take action. We can't think our way into reinvention. And then once you've taken action, it's great for you to give yourself what some of the research calls an alert intermission, or where you take a break. And you've probably had this. Think about a time when you had an insight and it came the morning after, in the shower, it came that night, it came maybe while you were driving in the car. It wasn't in the moment. We have networks in our brain that don't fire until after we've taken action and things settle in and connections start to make stronger glued connections to one another. The synaptic connection is there. And then we go, oh, that's what happened. And so giving yourself a time to stop and not take the next action right after the first action, but to just let the learning distill upon you is super, super wise, because that's when you'll get insight to fly in one ear, drop off the golden nugget of just what meaning you needed to make, and fly out the other. And that's how you know that you've been hit with insight that's important to you, but it only comes in those pauses. Is that what you were talking about, Shannon?
Beautiful. Yes, that's a great example. Thank you very much. So important. So aspirations, Lyn describes, which I love, as heart dreams. They are part of dreaming. They are wishes. They're big, audacious desires. And it's aspirations and heart dreams are how we connect to our lives, how we navigate, explore, and transform our lives as well. So very important. So how do we discover these aspirations? I wanted to take a little 2-minute exercise. I'll set a little clock on my phone, and just ask yourself 2 really simple questions. It doesn't require a ton of thought. I encourage you to write down what comes to mind first. So 2 questions. If I could wish for the impossible, what would I want now? If there were no obstacles in the world, what would I want in my work and my professional life? And what would I want in my personal life? So I'll set our little timer and take 2 minutes just to see what comes to mind for you. Okay, I invite you to come back. If anyone has had some insight that they'd like to share, we'd certainly love to hear from you, or you can keep these to yourself, whatever you prefer. So I hope that was insightful. Now, Lyn, I was wondering if you might speak to the aspirations and dreams coming from the prefrontal cortex and what that means instead of the limbic brain, and why that's effective.
Yeah. So in this moment, some of you may have noticed that you had to set yourself free and let yourself dream. And what's happened to us, we carry some biological baggage that we don't understand that we've had. 95% of our beliefs and thereby some of our behaviors are hardwired into us by age 7. But think about yourself at age 7. Did you ever have that experience where you had gone to an amusement park and you turned to your parents and said, "This is so much fun, let's go to Disneyland"? And your parents were like, "Whoa, whoa, calm your jets, be grateful for what we have. Disneyland's kind of big." Or you found yourself coming home from school just enthralled with an art project and you announced, "I want to be an artist when I grow up." And you saw the furrowed brows on your parents' faces and you're like, "Oh, maybe and they said something about, well, that's a fun thing to do, but you've got to earn a living when you grow up." And so you started to gain these beliefs about who you were and what was possible. So before age 7, we're usually finding that some of the beliefs and some of the values and even some of our fears about reinvention, earning a living and living a life by doing what inspires us, has been stamped on, hidden under a wet blanket, thrown in some closet somewhere. And so we don't have access to that. So what we've learned in neuroscience is that when we take time to really imagine, and Shannon set this up with with a great question, take away the obstacles if you can. Some of you may have found more resistance to that than others. Some of you may have found it easier than others. When we take away some of the obstacles and we allow ourselves to dream, we're accessing the prefrontal cortex, the executive brain, right behind the third eye chakra. This is where our imagination is. This is where innovation is. This is where we start to build trust with other people and connection. This is where we can co-create with other people. So when we're at our best, when we're thinking at our best, when we can self-regulate, when we can collaborate and get win-win situations and mutual success, we're always working from the prefrontal cortex, but not just the brain in our head. We also have to drop into our aspirations because we now know there is a functional brain in the heart and also in the gut system. And the heart has about 40,000 neurites in it. They don't speak and think with us like our head brain, but they do have a language of themselves. And one thing we've found are aspirations and dreams often come from interactions between the prefrontal cortex and the neurons that are firing in the heart and sending messages up. Because the heart and the gut brain send more messages to the head than the head sends down to them. There's also a part of deep identity that's embedded in our gut brain. And the gut brain starts at the back of the throat, right here behind your ears, goes all the way down to your back door. And there's 500 million neurons in the gut brain. Just for comparison, there are 86 billion neurons in the head brain. So of course the gut and the heart don't speak exactly like that. But if you feel in my heart of hearts that I need to do this, and I know Sharni's on the call, Sharni, you're making some big moves that your heart and gut are leading you to. And it's not necessarily an intellectual decision. Is that right? Yeah. So the gut and the heart can inform. And what Shannon's taking you through as an exercise is to listen to these. Listen to these because they are giving you intimations, insights, and instincts that you will need to guide you through reinvention. And before I pass it back to Shannon, let me just tell you one quick story. I know this story really well because this morning I was reviewing it with my publisher. It was like, this has to go in your book. I'll use a pseudonym because I don't have permission to use this story with you guys today right now. But we've had a former client, we'll call him Walter. And Walter came in as a young father, 2 kids, wife is a school teacher. And so the main income in the family was his, and he wanted to reinvent. Excuse me. Now you can imagine how much fear that places in a husband and a breadwinner who is saying, but my work is killing me. And just let me take a sip of water. I'll be ready. He was working in the financial end of a business. He was like the controller of the company, comptroller. And so he excels with Excel spreadsheets. He knows how to manage budgets. He does all the reconciliation with the P&Ls at the end of each month. He's really good at it, and he's learned how to manage people. When he came in, we could see that the place where he was working was ready for him to quit. Like, it was killing him. They didn't know it, but they were smashing him, and he had to find a bridge job. He found a bridge job where he could do similar work in their financial department, but be able to leave it at 5 o'clock and not have to take it home so much. And that gave him a breather where he could start to invest in, now what else can I do in reinvention? So he cleared out some space so he could listen to the intimations of the heart and the gut and the head brain. Now, from the day one, when I started working with him, over his shoulder in his home office was a little model car. I knew that he loved to restore cars because I know his father does, and I know his father. He had a passion for sports cars that were being revamped and souped up, and he just loves cars. By the time we finished his reinvention, the thing that he loves, his passion with cars, is now today the job that he is doing. And if you don't know this company, you'll probably want to if you're a car buff. It's called Bring a Trailer. Bring a Trailer sells all kinds of refurbished, souped up, zippy cars, and car collectors use Bring a Trailer to trade their cars. Jay Leno does it all the time with his vehicles. This gentleman is now working there and moving up through the ranks. And he was able to reinvent from the financial department to write and talk about something he loves, which are cars. That would have been a dream of his. When we started Reinvention, it wasn't even something he considered. But by going through aspirational exercises like the one Shannon took you through, on a whim, he tossed his hat in the ring with a resume. He interviewed, they were impressed with him. He got the job, and he quickly went up the ranks. So today he's earning a living and living his life by doing things that he pinches himself and says, I'm inspired, I love. And it all came because he was willing to allow himself to acknowledge his dreams. Here you go, Shannon. How was that?
What a fabulous story. That was a great, great example. Thank you, Lyn. Wonderful. So in addition to what Lyn is saying, and talking about opening to your dreams and your aspirations, I'd invite you to start to make friends with and find the space that allows you to open. You know, maybe it's taking 5 minutes in the morning just to do some breath work or do some meditation or a prayer, or take, you know, at your lunch break, just take a couple of quiet moments and sit, but really make friends with an experiment with the space that's going to allow you to open your mind and open your heart and to lean into these aspirations and dreams. So aspiration literally means to breathe. I learned from Lyn. And I think that this, all of our talk today is really demonstrating how vital to life, just like breath, aspirations and dreams are. So some suggestions for success. When we're in that neutral zone in the middle, one of the ways that we can stay unstuck and not get down or depressed are to stay creative. If we stay dreaming, we stay creative, we keep learning, that lends to our success. Also, take some risks. This is a safe zone to say, I might want to be a rock star. Maybe I want to be a lawyer. Maybe I want to, you know, be outlandish. Maybe I want to be a dance instructor. Maybe I want to be a nurse, whatever it is. I mean, it can be something that sounds crazy to you and you're not crazy. The more you can challenge yourself in those big ways to dream even bigger, the more success you're going to find. Journal about your dreams and reflect on your entries. It's amazing to go back a few months later or a year later and see where you were, and then see how much you've expanded in that time since. Also, observe how the process affects your imagination. Also, your resilience and your fears. At first, we feel a lot of limitations when we start to dream. We are fearful oftentimes. And as we do it more and more, and we allow ourselves to relax around it, realize it's not the end of the world, it's actually a component of success, we get better at risk taking. We feel more inspired. We bounce back, and we are more resilient in this process. And also to find your community. Finding your community and your people is essential, and that is the thing that Career Reinvention provides. You have a community, you've got a coach, you've got this wonderful program designed by Lyn that guides you through it, packed with videos and worksheets. So that can be a big piece of inspiration and help to keep you on track for sure. Be resourceful and be adaptable. And I definitely invite you to get excited, because being excited about all of this is essential. It's your space to let go and let loose and not be judged and to not judge yourself. So with that, I hope you can open and start allowing yourself to dream. And I just wanted to say thank you for being here with us today. I've put a couple resources if you have any questions about career reinvention, about the work that SoulSalt does, about coaching. We've got an email address, info@soulsalt.com, that will go directly to Shannon D. And check out the amazing blogs at soulsalt.com. And check your emails after this call, because Shannon will be sending a recording of the call and also some really pertinent blogs that Lyn has written about aspirations. And I'd love to hear from anyone if you would like to add some comments or share some experiences or questions that you have. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Anybody want to share or have questions now? Let's open it up.
Okay.
We got a few minutes to do that, right?
Absolutely.
Let's do that. And it's good to see your face, Sean and Sharni. Yeah, yeah.
I'll just say thank you. It's good for me to continue to be able to come back to these spaces with others that are reminding me that reinvention is a process. And it's okay that it takes us all our own amount of time to get to that place. So I really connected to early on when I jumped on just that you can't think yourself into reinvention. That resonates a lot with me. I'm an overthinker and a recovering perfectionist and all the things. And so appreciate the reminder that, just taking the action and then sit and do the actual intentional reflection and journal about it to get that creativity going is a practice that sometimes I set to the side because I think I got to keep going now that I've started the momentum and maybe there's not time. But when you shared too that staying that creative practice, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes, can also help that sort of dopamine hit for the creativity to keep it going and keep us up when it's feeling heavy because we're moving through so much change.
Yeah. In fact, that creativity, if I can comment on that.
Yes.
Imagine you were in a very cold climate and you were a jogger and you were jogging through a small city with some stoplights. And you came to one and it was red and you couldn't go across the street because there were cars coming, you would most likely jog in place a little bit to keep your body fluid and not to get cold in between, make sure that you are still moving when the light turns green. Creativity is very similar to that. As long as you're creative, you will find that you have juice in your veins when you need it. And so creativity, I'm glad you caught on that, Sharni. It's a great tool for not only imagination, but just staying enthused and fluid during reinvention.
Yeah, really good tip. And I needed it today. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sharni. It's so good to have you here. I love your insights.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, and I'd love Lyn to chime in here, because in the beginning of this section, she talked about the people maybe in our childhood that planted some of those limiting belief systems. And when we're reinventing ourselves and we're maybe in that neutral zone, maybe it happens before, some of those things keep coming up and you feel as though, gosh, am I ever going to get out of this default mode? Well, the beautiful part about the reinvention creative process, aspiring, dreaming, is that if we continue to build that muscle, actually grow those synapses in our brain, eventually those become our default mode. The limiting beliefs may never be gone completely. We can't wipe our brain like we do a phone, right? But we can replace the default mode with that, with those aspirations, dreams, creativity, and eventually the results.
Yeah, well said, Hillary. And, I had an experience this week where I realized that some of you on the call will recognize what I'm saying. You get intuitive hits. Some of you actually see visions of yourself in the future. You literally can see yourself doing something. And maybe you haven't recognized that it's an aspiration or a dream that Shannon was talking about today. I had one where I was a school teacher, and for some reason I kept seeing myself. I thought it was being a psychologist because I could see myself sitting on a couch across from somebody, taking notes and talking with them as if maybe a psychologist would. I knew it wasn't a therapist, but I was like, I think that's psychology. And I even, as I was teaching school, I spent 15 years as a school teacher. I was looking at the University of Utah as to what could I do to get into a program to become a psychologist. And then my career changed a little bit, and I got hired by Franklin Covey, and I found a coach who, I didn't even know what a coach was, but I found myself sitting in front of a coach. He was sitting on a couch with a notebook, talking with me, and I went, and excuse my French, holy shit. That's what I saw myself doing. And, as much as I'd gone through and was studying for whatever kind of tests you need to take to go back and get your master's and your doctorate to be a psychologist, I became aware in that moment that the thing that I had seen and imagined, had dreamed of, was actually to become a coach, even before there was coaching as a profession. And I just happened to run into it in a career transition, my very big first career transition. So there is a lot more to the intimations that you're getting that you might say are dreams or visions, or maybe you hear something or you feel something. Pay attention to those. If you're working with Hillary or Shannon or myself, we're going to want you to plug into those, because those will tell us where to start experimenting. Those will tell us what some of your possible other selves are that could come forward in the reinvention process. Yeah.
I love that, Lyn. It's almost like there's more unknown than there is known in the process, and it's just as valuable.
That's so well said. Can you say that again?
Like I said, there's almost as much unknown as there is, or maybe even more unknown than there is known in the process, and it's just as valuable.
It really is. It really is. Yeah. And Hillary, thanks for your comments, because I think that set that up so we could have a little tidbit come in.
All the more reason to journal, right? Because you cannot remember it all. You've got to write it down.
Yeah, writing it down and going back over your notes, or even just making it visual and kinesthetic in the moment, right, Hillary?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, if you can't tell, we're passionate about this. We've all been through the process. We're here to work through almost the midwifery of being by your side while you're doing it, so that you don't have to feel alone. And we have lots of resources. Like Shannon said, we have some free blogs that talk about aspirations and reinvention. We also have an online course if you want to do it yourself. And then we have Hillary and Shannon that are currently taking clients. My client load's a little full right now, so that may or may not happen if you want to work with me right now, but both Hillary and Shannon have some open spaces. So no, we're here if it works for you. And if all you do, and it's a big all, is come to these free sessions every month with us to know that you're not alone, we welcome you. You don't have to hire us to stay tuned into this. We want to be there for you, because we know what it's like to be in your shoes and how much the doubts and the loneliness can sink in when you're trying to do it on your own. Any final comments from Hillary or Shannon or any of our participants today, or our spectators?
I want to thank you all for being here and encourage you to go take some risks. Get crazy, dream big, and sometimes welcome those failures, right? Sometimes when we're experimenting, those failures, it's how we learn. So it's find that safe space and risk, experiment, and expect some failures, and that's part of your success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hillary, any parting words of wisdom?
I was going to put it in the chat. Dream on. Remember that for those of us that are from the 70s? Dream on.
Yeah, and Hillary, tell people where you recently just spent some time in Idaho because you were
Okay.
dreaming.
I was dreaming, that's right. And okay, then I'll share with my little thing from the exercise, okay, if we've got a minute.
Yes.
So mine was, because this was the big dream, right? Be on a book tour as the author, of course, coaching, speaking, connecting with others who are transforming their lives. That's my big dream. And so I recently come back from the Sun Valley Writers Conference, where I was immersed in authors and talks for 3 days. It felt a lot like going to college again because they are so inspiring. It was absolutely wonderful. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, I know you have that big dream and I know you will accomplish it and you keep chipping away at it. We had a question in the chat about process and goals or structure and goals. You've structured some things in your life so that you can reach that goal. And I really tip my hat to you, Hillary.
And thank you for that. And that's absolutely it. Before I could reinvent, I had to refigure how I can do this financially, what I can do and have a game plan to step into that process. And I'm grateful for Lyn for getting me there, absolutely, and planting that seed with me. And I feel so excited to be finally embracing the grit of life. That's where I feel like I am right now.
Yeah, we got to embrace a little bit of grit in this process.
So true.
Well, thank you again for joining us. We hope this has been useful. Again, if you have personal questions or professional comments that you want to make, send them our way. We want to always see what you're thinking in your heart of hearts, where all the aspirations come from. So from our SoulSalt team to you, have a good rest of your week and know you are not alone.
Thank you.
Take care.